Thanks for joining us on this latest episode of the True Claims Podcast. You know, one of the reasons I love doing this show is I learned so much about the legal process and how it works, and also about what goes into a successful personal injury claim. If you're like me and you're curious about some of those things, you can leave a comment down below and we might put it into our next show. For instance, if you have a question about obscure road laws or dirty tricks by the insurance industry or personal injury situations you want to discuss, leave them in the comments below. You might be a part of our next show. Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Johnson. Welcome to the latest episode of the True Claims Podcast. We've got another interesting, fascinating case, and in this case, a tragic case to break down for you. February of 2023 in Leavenworth, Washington, a man and woman, Roy and Lori, retirees, were on their way to go skiing at Stevens Pass, and on the road, which was in patches, icy, a vehicle coming the opposite direction, eastbound, veered across the center line into their line and hit Roy and Lori head on. Roy and Lori were hurt, but adding to the tragedy, the driver of the oncoming vehicle was a young person, and in that crash, that person's parents both perished in that accident. As for Roy and Lori, they suffered broken bones, head injuries, spinal injuries, and more than a year after the accident, they came to the Davis Law Group. Let's bring in Chris Davis, founder of the Davis Law Group. And my first question, Chris, is why wait a year? Why do people wait so long before calling a lawyer?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. One, most people don't want to have to hire a lawyer. They think it's too expensive or that it might make things worse. The other reason is that they, I would say, naively think that they can resolve the claim on their own, which is fine for very minor claims. But when we're talking about major injuries, major accident like this one, waiting so long can actually hurt them. Because if they're talking to the insurance company, they may unknowingly say some things that may hurt the value of the claim.
So let's talk about that accident itself. What can you tell me more about what happened?
So with snowy, the roads were fairly treacherous. It was on a 2-lane roadway out of Leavenworth to Stevens Pass. And one of the oncoming vehicles lost control and went over into their lane and caused a head-on crash.
How much damage to the vehicles? Was this one of those really nasty ones we see on the side of the road, right?
Yeah, both vehicles were totaled. And as you mentioned earlier, 2 of the occupants in the causing accident vehicle died. And so our clients also suffered very severe injuries, causing paralysis. I think the husband broke his neck in 3 places. There were internal organ injuries, kidneys, I think, and liver injuries. So very, very serious injuries. Let's talk about this couple, Roy and Lori. What can you tell me about their lives? These seem like good people. Yeah, salt of the earth people, doing what many retirees do, which is travel our state and take advantage of, for instance, the ski areas. But really good down-to-earth people.
They ran a farm, didn't they?
That's right. They owned a lavender farm, which was news to me. I didn't know they had farms dedicated to lavender spices, but yeah, that's what they did.
So in a situation like this, I mean, I can't imagine them continuing to farm with the kind of injuries that we're talking about, paralysis, broken ribs, head injuries, all those things.
Yeah, I don't want to make light of it, but they actually had to sell the farm as a result of this particular collision.
Man, so this had a truly lasting impact on their lives.
Absolutely. And it's more difficult for us to quantify the losses involving a self-employed individual as opposed to somebody that loses 9 to 5 wages, because there can be many different reasons as to why the business profit or income has dropped. So typically it requires us getting an expert involved to examining all the business records, ruling out other factors that may have caused the drop in revenue before we have a strong opinion on the loss.
And certainly with those kinds of injuries, they could not be working on the farm or the bed and breakfast.
Exactly.
So they come to you and they said, what can we do? And how did you respond? How did you go about investigating this?
Well, so they came to us because they got incredibly frustrated with dealing with the insurance company, which in this case was a Canadian insurance company, because the driver that caused the accident was from Canada. So when we got the case, we immediately contacted law enforcement to get a complete copy of the investigation. And in this case, we call it a fatality investigation because 2 people died. We know in fatality investigations, the investigators do a lot better job at examining, investigating, and then determining the cause of the accident. So the law enforcement people essentially determined that the other vehicle lost control and slid into the lane of our clients. That was the first thing. The next thing is that we had to learn more about the injuries, so we immediately sent out requests for their medical records. I think we may have hired a few medical experts to assess them to give us an idea as to long-term issues that they may face.
Do we know anything about this oncoming vehicle? Were there speeding involved, or was it just the fact that it was a treacherous situation?
So I don't think they were speeding per se, but I think the officers determined that they were going too fast for conditions.
For the conditions.
Which means you can still be going the speed limit or even under the speed limit, but if the conditions are treacherous, you can still be cited for going too fast.
Wow. So are icy conditions or treacherous roads ever an excuse then? Never an excuse for an accident that happens?
Rarely is an excuse. Almost always the person is going too fast given the conditions of the roadway. That being said, I have handled a few cases against the government where we were able to prove that the Department of Transportation did not sand the the roadway appropriately, but those are few and far between. So almost always it comes down to the negligent conduct of the driver.
Now that causing driver in this particular instance was Canadian. Does that impact your case at all?
Yeah, it can offer some nuances in the case, especially if we have to file a lawsuit, which means we have to find and locate the person, the Canadian citizen, and then serving that person, there's some hoops that we have to jump through. It's called the Hague Convention when it comes to serving legal process against a foreigner. That causes an increase in expense, and it can also result in us not getting the case filed in time if the person takes too long before they come to see us.
Tell me about the recovery in this case, Chris. How were you able to do for this couple?
So I think we were able to do very well. We were able to recover most or all of the insurance that the driver had. So in Canada, they always use a company called ICBC, which is the main insurance company in Canada. And I think we were able to secure over 1.9 million Canadian dollars for the recovery, which I think translated into American dollars around 1.5 to 1.6 million.
Let's talk about some of the takeaways of this tragic situation and the way it played out with the Davis Law Group. First of all, the treacherous situations. What can drivers do defensively to protect themselves in this kind of a situation?
Yeah, especially during the winter when the roads are snowed or iced over, it's really, really important to go slow. And also have either the right tires or be using chains. We've handled so many cases where an accident is caused because an oncoming driver slips or loses control of the vehicle for a moment that causes the vehicle to swerve just briefly into the oncoming lane and causes a fatality or a serious accident. We see that quite a bit. So people just really need to slow down, especially if they're on a roadway where there's no divider and you've got vehicles going in each other direction.
You mentioned earlier, Chris, that this couple, Roy and Lori, tried to handle this themselves. They did their best, tried to take things in hand. You'd advise against that in a case like this, in an accident this big?
Yeah, anytime there's a serious accident involving serious injuries, especially if there are fatality injuries involved, it's always advisable to contact and hire a lawyer as soon as possible. And the reason for that is because when you try to settle your own claim, any statements that you make to the insurance company can then be used against you in the claim. So we've had cases where clients, after about 6 months, will give a recorded statement to the insurance company where they're saying that they're good, they're fine. Well, they're not really fine. They're just doing better than before. But the insurance company uses that moment when it comes time to negotiate the claim. And so there's nothing as the lawyer I can do about what's happened before they hired me, right? Things like that can hurt the damage or hurt the valuation of the claim. It can make it more difficult to recover fair compensation.
Do you think people in those situations sometimes think they can recover more by not paying a law firm?
Almost always. I've seen this over 3 decades now. For the serious injuries, you're always going to recover more, even with the lawyer's fee. And the reason for that is because an experienced attorney knows how to position the claim, knows the typical defense arguments that the insurance company is going to make and avoid those, and also put pressure on the insurance company by filing a lawsuit, getting the carrier to take a real hard look at the claim. And almost always we are able to get substantially more than they ever would on their own. And I know this because a lot of clients come to us and they've already got a final offer from the insurance company, right? And I tell them, we will beat that offer. And if we can't beat it, I will reduce my fee. And I can't think of a time where we did not beat it substantially. And when I say substantially, I'm talking at a minimum an extra tens of thousands of dollars, but more often than not, it's over $100,000 more.
Wow.
So it's in their interest to hire counsel in a serious accident.
All right, Chris, so fascinating. And we want to remind everybody now that if you're interested or you have questions that you would like us possibly to address in a future episode of the True Claims Podcast, you can leave a comment down below this podcast. Ask a question of whether it be about the roads or the insurance companies or any personal injury situation that you have had history with. And who knows, maybe you'll be a part of the very next True Claims Podcast. I am Eric Johnson. He's Chris Davis, the man with all the answers. We'll see you next time. Eric Johnson here. I spent the last 30 years reporting on what you need to know, and now I've got something I think everyone could use. The Washington Accident Book Series offers a free legal guidebook on everything from car crashes to dog bites, so that you know what to expect after any kind of accident. Know your rights and how to avoid common mistakes after an accident by getting your free copy at WashingtonAccidentBooks.com.